2 of the shadow lesson. For this, I'm going to use a dried flower, foliage, and a heart from the digital downloads. Move those over to my document. Okay, I'm going to turn off the heart. We'll come back to that in a moment. First thing I want to do is I want to put the flower over the foliage, and I want to put it in the position where just a piece of this top leaf is going to end up overlapping the flower. Okay. That will work well there. Next, I'm going to put a drop shadow behind the foliage. And I want to increase its distance so it's lifted up off the page, and I'm increasing the size to make it very, very soft, barely perceptible. I like that drop shadow. To quickly duplicate it, I'm using the Option key and I'm clicking and dragging the shadow up onto my flower. This is the fastest way to quickly duplicate a shadow effect. Okay, next, I want this piece of leaf to cover the flower. So I'm going to use the lasso tool and I'm going to cut this piece of foliage out. I'm going to right click and layer via copy. I'm now going to place that over the flower. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a mask over that leaf, and I'm going to use a brush tool. For this one, I'm going to use a hard round and it's on black so that I can erase away this stem that's covering the flower. I only want the leaf, not the stem, to cover the flower. Then I'm going to make this shadow appear closer to the flower by decreasing the size and the distance. And we'll make it just a little bit darker too, so that it looks like the shadow is much, much closer to that flower. Now, the way it is right now, this darker shadow is overpowering that light shadow. So to fix that, I'm going to right click on the drop shadow and I'm going to go to create layer. On the shadow layer, I'm going to clip it by right clicking and create a clipping mask, and I'm clipping it to the flower. Now that shadow is only going over the flower. So now I have this interaction of the flower is sitting on top of the stem, but the leaf is peeking through the petals. So it looks like the leaf is on top of the flower, but the flower is on top of the stem. And I can do a similar effect with the heart. Okay, I want to position and shrink down this heart. I'm just using a transform tool, Command T, and I'm going to put it in a position where the heart is overlapping the flower, but I'll be able to cut out a piece of this leaf and place the leaf over the heart. Before I do that, I'm going to use the Option key and click and drag that drop shadow up onto the heart so that I'm matching the drop shadows. Next, I'm going down to the foliage using that lasso tool, and I'm going to cut out just a piece of that ivy leaf. Right clicking and layer via copy. And now I'm going to place that over the heart. But you'll see that I have this artifact where both that drop shadow from that piece of leaf and the drop shadow from the heart are creating this light and dark effect on the leaf, which just doesn't make sense. I need to correct that. I have to turn it on first. Right click on the drop shadow and create layer. With the drop shadow selected, I'm going to create a clipping mask onto the heart so that that piece of shadow is now only on the heart. For the heart shadow, I'm going to right click and create layer, and I'm going to drag that shadow underneath of the foliage. Because I want the shadow to also cover the flower to create that illusion of depth, I'm going to duplicate that shadow. I just use Command J on my MacBook Pro, and I'm going to carry that shadow up on top of the flower and also apply a clipping mask. Okay, so now I have created depth and dimension where I have a flower on top of the stem, but the leaf on top of the flower. I have the heart on top of the flower, but the leaf is on top of the heart, and all of the shadowing is correct. Recording, what I did was I selected all of these layers from the clipped leaves and all the way down to the foliage, and I grouped them together, and I've relabeled that as cluster 1. Grouping things together, 1, it keeps my layer panel clean, and 2, it means I can move this around as a unit. I can later use this cluster to make a layout, and I can add it anywhere I want. It's moving together as a unit. For now, I'm going to turn it off because what I want to show you next is how to add that key on top of the bottle. And these were a part of the Digital Artistry INSD for May 2025. It was part of the free with purchase gift. So there's the bottle and there's the key. First thing I want to do is position that key in a way that it's going to interact with the twine on the bottle. I want it to look like the key is dangling off the twine. I'm going to shrink that bottle down so that I get a better fit. Okay, that should work. And I just want to keep fiddling with this key, and so I get a nice good position where I can see the twine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a mask to the key, hit B on the keyboard for brush. I'm using a soft brush, 100% opacity, 100% flow, and it's on pure black so that I can erase away portions of this key. And in doing so, it starts to look as if this piece of the key is tucked behind that twine, like it's dangling from the twine. Next, I'm going to add a shadow to the key. I meant to click on drop shadow, not color overlay. There we go. And I'm just going to extend that distance out a bit and the size out a bit, just eyeballing it till it looks right. And it is that easy peasy to create this clustered look with the key in the bottle, making it look as if this key is dangling from the bottle. And once again, I can add these together. I was going to call that bottle. And if I also want to use this as an element on my page, I can now add a drop shadow to that bottle. But I may want that shadow to be the same size as the shadow with the foliage. So once again, I'm going to go to the foliage, use the Option key, click and drag that drop shadow up on the bottle group, and now those shadows are matching. Show you is how to create a folder bend in a banner or a flag or a pennant. I've clicked and dragged and brought over the green banner. First thing I'm going to do is use that rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle over the banner, aligned roughly in the middle. And then I'm going to select a new layer, and then I'm going to select the gradient tool, making sure it's on the black to transparent and that it's on the linear. And I'm going to click and drag, make that gradient over the banner. I'm going to hit Command D to get rid of the marquee tool, and I'm going to clip that gradient to the banner. Okay, I'm going to adjust it. I'm going to shrink it down, and I'm going to pull over that side so that I get a better effect. And I like to use linear burn. Here you could use multiply or you could use linear burn. And I'm going to adjust that over so it fits in the center a bit better. Now from here, I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. I'm going to run a Gaussian blur on that gradient. I'm going to soften it up. With the edge more soft, I can now lower that opacity, and I've made it look as if there is a fold in that banner. And I'm going to turn that off for a moment. I'm going to repeat the process. I wanted to just show you the different effects you can make with that Gaussian blur. I'm just repeating the process of adding the gradients and then getting it positioned better. Okay. If I hit linear burn and adjust the color, adjust the opacity down. Okay. If I do that before I run that Gaussian blur, I can see the different effects that the Gaussian blur does. So go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Okay. I can put just a little bit of that blur effect and get a harder, more defined bender fold, or I can increase that radius so that there's just a very slight, gentle bend. And it really becomes a matter of preference how you want to add that bender fold to the banner, but it's just a great, easy way to add depth and interest to your layouts. This concludes my shadow tutorial part 2. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you over at Digital Artistry Online. Happy creating!